7th meeting of the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. We had 3 sets of minutes from the May 16th, 21st, and 23rd meeting that were emailed to everybody, and I hope everybody had a chance to look those over, and somebody will make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Ready for the investment report. Mr. Beatty,
Thank you, sir.
please don't ask him too many questions. He's in a hurry to get back to Bonnaroo. So.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, listen, one night this weekend, they're gonna have their first Grand Ole Opry show at Bonnaroo, so that's more my speed. I won't be there, but that's more my speed.
Never thought a Church of Christ preacher would be telling us about the acts at Bonnaroo.
Let's move to the investment report quickly. You can see our LGIP rate has jumped again. We're at 172, which makes our effective rate 196. So a long way from the 0.01 of 3 or 4 years ago. And we did have a bid. You can see we took the shorter term. We took the 6 months for 217 versus the year at 231 because these rates are rising so quickly, and you know the anticipation is that next week the Fed will raise rates again. So we've kind of held off. We had another bid. We're going to wait till at least the Fed meets. If they raise, hopefully they'll get us some better rates. Because right now, almost these bids that we're getting are barely, if keeping up with where rates are rising to. That will probably slow at some point. But if I knew that, I'd probably be in New York or somewhere. But anyway, so the rates are better. We're just watching, taking short-term stuff and letting the rates rise so we can take as much advantage of that as we possibly can.
Any questions, Mr. Beatty?
Yeah. How come so many didn't bid?
I think part of it, we've got 2 or 3 that are bidding very aggressively, and the others are just kind of,
Watch and see.
they're just, when you don't get them for a while, you kind of, they keep up with them and they'll call about them. And then we also had one of our aggressive banks was Capital Bank, which now has merged with First Tennessee. They've been a pretty aggressive bidder, and now that's one bank, so that's cut out one. And just to be honest with you, we've never gotten the activity back we had prior to the decline, and we keep working with that. But I do think, because when I try to check around with other trustees, and then we'll always have folks, because of the size of what we have coming in, and everybody has something to offer you, and when they pretty much see what we're getting, they thank us, and they don't really have a lot to offer. So, but I think that's the main reason.
Yeah, the deal we've got was the 26 basis points above LGIP. That they know that.
Yes, sir.
So if they can't beat that, there's no point in them even putting the time in.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion then to approve the investment report.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a second to answer a question that
Absolutely.
the Commissioner asked me? I went back and looked at the audit reports of other counties across the state, and what they list, some of them, not all, but some of them list their collections year to date as of June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, the current year's collections at the end of the fiscal year. But it gives us a good indication where we stand, because how you're going to collect is a process that really begins at the assessor's office, ends with the back tax attorney, and how you rate with that. So let me give you just some of these. Anderson County had a 94.83 rate. Bedford County had a 95.41. Shelby County, Memphis, 96.27. Bradley County, 96.36. Hamilton County, 96.4. Knox County, 97.6. Rutherford County, and this is from our audit, this is apples to apples to apples. Rutherford County, 98.42. The only county that beat us was 99.17, which was Davidson. They sell their receivables. So that's all they're going to collect is 99.17, because they sell it to a third party. They keep collecting, but the interest and everything goes to a third party. So 99.17 of the year's tax roll is the limit for Davidson County. This last year, we collected 99.45 before we turned it over to Chancery, which is better than what they received, which was, going back to 1999, was the best collection rate we'd had in a current year, that's one, as far back as my records go, is 99.
That's terrific.
So, but that does give you asked that, I did not have a good answer, and so I said, I'll get you one. So,
I've
thank
got
you.
a quick question for you
Yes,
about
sir.
that. We saw in a commission meeting what some of the, I guess, entities were that owed back taxes, the ones that were rotating off, I guess, after the 10-year period.
Yes, sir.
And it looked like a lot of businesses, and at that time, I sort of concluded that these must be businesses that went out of business, and there wasn't an entity to collect from any longer. But if that's on a property, then whoever buys the property, don't they owe the back taxes, even if it's from a prior business?
It's personal property. Those are personal property taxes. If it's real estate, that's true. The personal property actually carries a lien. What happens, in some of them, and that's why I said this is a process, why this gives us a good idea. Because it starts at the assessor's office. If you get a business license, we're going to put you on the tax roll. Going to try to send you a form, hope you fill it out. If you don't, you get a forced assessment, but you're still on the tax roll. Well, some folks, when they get the bill, will acknowledge it and say, I got that, I was going to do computer repair out of my dorm room, but I never did it, or whatever. I mean, I was going to cut hair, but I wound up going somewhere else. So those are not there. There are really no assets. Some of them just ignore it. They move, and so those hang out. Because so a lot of them are $3, $7. Those hang out. Some of the other businesses will move out, and what assets they have are gone. Now, if we find that XYZ Trucking Company sold to ABC Trucking Company, then the lien goes with those trucks. We rented that with an airplane in Nashville. Somebody else bought the airplane. We said, I understand, but the lien was not against the company, it was against the airplane. So they paid that tax. So that's where those come from. Just finding them, we keep trying. In fact, my staff is down there this summer calling all these folks. Do we have a right address? Just trying to make sure that we get the bills. But some of them never existed, some of them did, and they're just gone. It was a lawn care, it was a hair cutting, it was a computer repair service. They're almost, there's a screwdriver and that's kind of all that there is.
And you only have to pay the back taxes of a prior owner if it's personal property.
No, if it's real. Now you do if you take the personal property, but a lot of these businesses never sell out. They just evaporate. They're just gone. That's the issue. If it's large enough to sell out, then those assets have a lien on them that you can go back against and collect. But again, if it's a barber shop, their clippers are you said lawn care, the lawnmowers, long gone. Sometimes it's a kid or a college student that start. I mean, sometimes they're not all, but that's a lot of them. And then sometimes on the real, and there's very few of these that'll pass, but occasionally we're still trying to work through estate issues at times. The biggest thing is you got to be careful if people really want you to take their property. We don't want to take on a liability for the county, because we become responsible if we take a property that's got a buried tank on it, or has some kind of hazardous waste, or has some hazard we're always very careful not to bring something in that's going to cost us money or bring us a liability. And so those kind of, but on those businesses, some of them really never existed, some of them did, but they're here today and gone tomorrow. And then some of them will get in and out of bankruptcy on us. And we're trying to work, the bankruptcy courts are really working on those habitual in and out bankruptcies. That's really not what the system was designed for, and that's really improved over the last year or two. But by the time you get ready to have a sale or an action, there you get the notice back into bankruptcy, and that's a real aggravation. But does that help answer your question? That's not all of it, but that's a lot of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Let's know on the fund condition report.
Okay, starting with development tax, we received this month $65,000, brings our year-to-date total to $5,525,250, no, $5,520,000. In that was 384 apartments for Murfreesboro. That was $576,000 of that. Okay, as far as our cash balances, at the end of May, we had $317,694,000. $242,030,000 of that was operating funds. $75,663,000 were borrowed funds. If no question, I'm going to show to the revenue review. The yellow highlights are showing you that for that category, we've already received 100% of what we budgeted. I'm not going to go into much detail because later on we're going to do revenue adjustments, and that's when we'll talk about detail. But on this first page, following what Mr. Brady said, at the end of May 18, they are already at 98.25% collected. And you can see that, and I've just started keeping this because I thought it was interesting comparing on how they have collected for the same time period for the last 4 years.
The ones that are low there, what are the reasons on those? The state of Tennessee and the federal government?
Where are you at?
It's 80, it's just below, one of them is number 3, and one of them is just below number 3.
Are you talking about the prisoner board? The number 3, yes. We're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
But
And the one just below it,
the investment income,
it just says total other federal government.
okay. We get these grants from the feds, and sometimes it's delayed. We put them on as soon as we get it to our budget. And sometimes, if you remember, at the end of the year, it just goes into next year. So there could be a timing issue on some of those. I really don't, I don't get real concerned because what we don't get from the feds, then we're not spending either,
Right.
you know?
Right. Is it the same with the other sources, non-revenue? Is it 51%?
We're at 51%. I gotta think what's in there. Let me get back with you on that, because
I'm
it's
just
just not
curious.
coming of what's missing out of that one. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, at the end of the year, we get reimbursement from the insurance fund and the workers' comp fund, and for coming from those funds to help fund the insurance department. So that doesn't show up till in June.
I get you.
The other piece of it is we bill the sheriff's department, we bill schools for the sheriff's department working at Board of Education.
Okay.
So those come in.
The cleanup ones.
We clean it up, get our last totals, they pay it. So that's what that is.
Any questions, Ms. Nolan?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Fee. Commissioner Jernigan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Risk Management Financial Report. Welcome, Melissa.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. So looking at the month of May, we ended with revenue at $8,144,721 compared to expenses at $5,111,980 for a difference by month of $3,032,740. Looking at it from a calendar period year-to-date perspective, revenue in prior period was $33,602,357 compared to current period of $38,720,907. Expenses in prior period year-to-date came in at $28,326,351 compared to current period year-to-date of $27,803,351. Compared on a fiscal period year-to-date, revenue in prior period was $59,982,644 compared to current of $66,220,251. with expenses in prior period at $61,811,053 and current at $60,931,504. Looking at the back page, you'll see that we have average enrollment in medical at 6,007 employees with a current calendar year revenue versus expense comparison. We have a difference of $10,917,556 to the positive. And when we look at it from a fiscal year perspective, we are to the positive of $5,288,747. And I will remind you that June, July and August, we will not collect premiums, so we'll start seeing those numbers change a little bit. When we look at the legal as it relates to Hudson Reed and McCrew, total legal this time last year was $58,043.37, of which $53,854.24 was paid out. I'm sorry, to Hudson Reed and McCrew. Whereas current total legal for this calendar or fiscal year is $18,762 for the month of May, compared to prior at $13,469 was paid for Hudson Reed and McCrew. In Fund 266, we ended May at $878,446 compared to prior period of $705,502.
Any questions? I said that twice. That's it.
Okay.
I apologize. I guess
No
I messed up
worries.
my hands.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, Mr. Peak. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Sorry about that. General fund budget transfer for stormwater.
Good evening, Commissioners. We had a recent upgrade from OIT for our GIS system. Our software upgrade rendered a couple of our computers outdated. The processors just can't handle the required functions that they need for the new software. So what we're proposing to do is to increase data processing equipment line for stormwater $2,600, and we're going to take $1,700 of that out of in-service training and $900 more out of office supplies. And that will get us 2 computers, one for our stormwater engineer and one for our stormwater inspector, and they will be able to function as needed.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Allen. Any questions of Mr. Hughes? Not? Call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jerk?
Yes. General fund budget transfer for planning and engineering. Guess you're taking that one.
I'm taking that
also.
one too. Douglas is on vacation. This is similar to the last request, except that we will need to increase our gasoline due to the recent rise in gas prices to cover this last month, about $700. And we are going to also increase data processing to get another computer for the county engineer, $2,170 for that. And that is all coming out. We're going to decrease in-service training $2,870 to cover both of those items.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne.
Second.
Commissioner Allen. Call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jerk?
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Thank y'all.
Mike, did you get that other concern taken care of? We were
That'll be
looking at
up
budget.
on
It's going to be in
item,
the last
39. So I'm going to enjoy the rest
I
of
was
it.
looking forward to seeing it tonight.
We're gonna circle back to that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Recovery Court, grant contract with Tennessee Department of Mental Health. Ms. Nolan.
This is a continuation grant that we've had for several years. It totals $107,500, and it comes from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services.
No
No
matching.
matching funds.
Now, matching funds.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Healy. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a Veterans Treatment Court grant contract with Tennessee Department of Mental Health.
This is another one that we've had for several years. It's $70,000. It's, again, from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services for the provision of Tennessee Veterans Treatment Court initiative.
And no matching funds. Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Peak. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. General fund budget transfer for juvenile detention. Ms. Duke, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Great. I think the first thing that we have is our budget transfer. This is within our budget, no new money, and we would like to use these extra monies from several line items that total up to $14,300 and spend on some items that we usually put off to the end of the year to buy to make sure that we've gotten through the year for some other things. The main purchases are going to be new mattresses and radios, and then some various other supplies.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a
And-
contract for juvenile detention with a juvenile detention care service for Tiffany County.
Yes, this is our current standard contract. It does include the PREA language, which the contract that they had before, they couldn't put their hands on it, and they wanted to make sure that they were up to date, so we sent them a new one, and we're running it back through. But we've had a contract with them in the past, and then they have had a few young people that have come, they've needed to send through to us here lately, so we went ahead and gave them a new contract.
Motion to approve the request.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan. Questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Ambulance service budget transfer for some ambulance. Mr. Nolly, welcome.
Thank you. We're asking to transfer $25,000 from health equipment to gasoline. I think all three of us can get it. We also would like to transfer $12,000 from data processing equipment to drugs and medical supplies, and to transfer $10,000 from paraprofessionals payroll to overtime pay.
Any questions, Mr. Nolly?
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Peak.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer. Any questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got an application for State Farm grant for ambulance service.
This is a grant that we've applied for before, but we've not ever received it. It's for $25,000, and we're asking for permission to apply for the grant. If we were to be awarded the grant, we'd use it for mobile data equipment in the ambulances.
Any match? Does it require a match?
No.
No.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. Mr. Jernigan, Mr. Mayor.
And can we actually also, if we awarded the grant, accept it, put that in a motion?
The motion, taking it okay with that and giving the mayor
Et
the
cetera.
ability to sign and all that good stuff. All right. You got all that? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Thank
Thank you, Mike. We're going to skip down to number 16 and come back to 13 and 14 and 15 after we get through number 21. I was told. So number 16, solid waste fund budget amendment and transfer. Mr. Nolan.
Good evening. It's the end of the year time, so it's time that you have to kind of make the money work. First budget amendment is for $50,000, and it's for other contracted service, and it would help to pay for glass and plastic and single stream recycling at Waste Management. We hauled 21 loads this week up there so far. That would be coming out of general fund, or solid waste fund balance. We'll go on to
Can we
the next
take
one.
these together? Sure. No objection, we'll go on and take them both together.
The next amendment is a $50,000 move coming out of the driver's payroll line item going into the driver's overtime line item.
50 or 25?
20, yeah, 25.
Give me a check and see if you were paying
Yeah, that's
attention
what I was
there.
thinking.
Yeah. Any questions on either one of these?
Yeah. Do we get anything, the recycling plastic, I'm taking it, gathered, does not pay for itself?
We dumped one load of single stream last month. I've been paying the bills, Kathy's out. That one load cost us $770 to dump it, not counting the trucking fee to get it there.
Used to pay for itself.
Yeah. And it's a circular economy, it'll come back.
Glass won't.
I've got ideas for glass, but TDEC doesn't like them. Okay.
But we got these two amendments by the wishes of the committee.
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
So.
Mr. Jernigan. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We got a litter collection contract with Department of Transportation for workhouse.
Maybe it would be good to set up a shooting range with it.
It's not his too, it's that litter grant. I thought that'd be all right.
Now, this is just,
I saw litter, I figured I'd do something with garbage, so.
Well, it does. They use some of our equipment. A little bit of good news, this budget amendment, we got a driver at Sand Hill Convenience Center Tuesday, and a fellow walked up to him and asked about how to find a job. He just moved to Laverne Sunday from Connecticut. Driver told him, put me on the phone with him. He came, filled out an application, and sweet talked him enough that he's going to take the position. He can take the position driving a truck next door for $20 an hour, more than what we're going to pay him. But he's got 20 years of garbage truck experience. So we'll be doing pretty good with that, I hope.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so this next, are you going to do this?
anyway, this is just the annual agreement we get with the state of Tennessee to pick up a certain limited amount of state roads, and this is how much they're going to pay us for those specific roads that they identify.
Motion to approve their request. Same every year, just about.
Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We got a grant contract with Tennessee Department of Children's Services for Teen Learning Program for Youth Services.
Hello.
Good evening.
This is a grant that we've had for years. It's a no-match grant from Department of Children's Services to fund teen learning center. So it's for 2 years. It's for the 18-19 and 19-20. So it's $834,835. Something. So
This may just pass us through.
it's just a pass. It's a pass through.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner P.
Second.
Mr. Baum. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have an application for Safety and Justice Challenge Grant.
I'm not sure who's doing that.
Anybody from the courts here?
I thought Jeff was gonna do that. Jeff said we should apply for it. But, do you know anything about that, Jeff?
I think this is one that came up on Reba's, in my office, up on her radar. And
We haven't met with the judges yet. We were trying to meet with Lisa Ashad yesterday, Judge Ashad. This is $50,000. What we do is apply this to a peer training grant with our judicial commissioners to work on a pretrial risk assessment. That's where we'd like to apply it. So we're still working to try to meet with Lisa Ashad. She'd be the person in charge overseeing the application of the grant in the judicial commissioner's office.
Make note that the deadline is June the 15th, so we're going to need permission to apply.
Is there matching on
No.
this?
That's the day after.
After
full
the commission meeting, so we,
And can we get some more answers between now and commission meeting and take action at that time? But it sounds like a little gray area there, and I'm a little, it's not matching, I don't find that.
I guess you could make the motion to approve the application and accept it, but subject to continued discussions prior to the commission meeting with the judge to confirm its applicability.
The award would come in the fall sometime for this grant.
Well, it'd be my suggestion we move this to the full commission meeting to be decided next week and not be on the consent agenda so we can actually discuss it and hopefully have enough information by then. Would that give them time enough to get the application in the next day?
Well, they'll have to go ahead and start this application even now.
Or you could have
Yeah.
approved to apply, but require to come back for acceptance.
Yeah, you could.
That's easy enough.
We'll
Next
make a
commission
motion
can decide that.
to do it that way then.
Yeah.
That we have permission to apply and contingent upon final approval from the full commission. Did that get
To
it?
accept the grant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'll be the next
accept it.
commission, but yeah.
They can decide whether to accept it. Like you said, it won't be until the fall before they know anything anyway.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Don't worry about that next Thursday.
I don't like the lilt in your voice whenever you say, we'll let the next commission worry about
Yeah.
that.
It's kind of nice to
It's
say.
rolling too on me.
Yeah, it's gaining warmth every time he says it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh.
Running out of meetings here.
We have to leave you
Something
one
to do.
easy one,
Yeah.
Commissioner Allen.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
General fund budget amendment for fire and rescue. Chief Farley, well,
Good evening. I have a budget amendment to move $2,000 out of the county gasoline fund to my gasoline fund 425. That should finish us up for June.
Motion to approve the request.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Second.
Commissioner Petty. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Thanks,
Larry. General fund budget amendment for Pauls. Mr. Gregory, welcome.
Thank you. Everybody's out of gas.
Yes.
It's like life, I was on the wrong page. Just kidding.
We thought we had moved around enough last month to get us through, and then we got our gas bill and realized we're going to be a little bit short. So this should get us through June, $1,800 from the pool to our account. And then the other is Murphy kind of hit us this week with our air conditioning at Paul's. The coils on this unit have to be replaced. They are leaking, so we're only running at 50% capacity on this unit at this point. I've consulted with the mayor several times over the last week, and we are asking to And I know y'all usually don't do this, but we're asking to move 20,000 from a part-time personnel line item over so that we can make this repair without having to touch undesignated fund balance.
You got enough money in your part-time to make it
Yes,
to
sir.
the end of the year?
I consulted with Mark today, and we do have enough there to cover that.
Seems like we've been fighting that air conditioning ventilation system out there ever since we built that building.
Yes, sir.
We already, you told me that we already replaced those coils once.
We did in 2000, I believe it was 2011, those were replaced.
How much does a new unit cost?
$100,000.
100.
But that's why we're where we are right here, after 2 or 3 days of iteration.
Probably had a 6-year warranty that expired last week.
I did ask today how much of a warranty a new one would be for that 100,000, and I was told 1 year for commercial. So,
I'm gonna ask another
Already
vendor.
paid for it, with this one, we'll pay 4/10 of the new one. But it would probably going out to it.
A lot of these really efficient units nowadays are made so thin, that's why they don't last as long. We're aware of that from the contractor, but it could be the atmosphere over there causing part of that.
But the one thing he did say, these units never shut off. Your unit at home, you know, when it reaches its temperature, will stop. This unit runs 24/7.
it's constantly pulling
Humidity
in
or
fresh air.
or
and the
fresh air
humidity.
problems over there.
Keep all that
with
odor out
pipes.
of that building.
I'll make a motion to approve the request, but I'd also like to tack on to the end of it that look and see what else is available out there for the future. And so if we've seen some, so comes up again, then maybe we know something else that'll work better or something like this. I don't know.
That may be the life of a
It
set
might
of
be.
calls on one that runs 24/7.
Yeah,
It just may
maybe.
be at the cost of doing business. But we have a second, Commissioner Schaefer. I'm gonna have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Allen? Any further questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Thank you all.
And we're going to circle back up to number 13. Invite the sheriff and his group in. General fund budget transfer for the sheriff's office. How are y'all this evening?
Doing well, thank you.
In the sheriff's side, I need to transfer 25,000 out of in-service into our other equipment for AEDs, medical bags, and a gunshot wound medical, or 8 gunshot wound medical bags for the judicial building. Also on the sheriff's side, I need to increase our overtime 80,000 by decreasing our other salaries by 80.
Would none of the AEDs and things like that been included in the construction of the building and stuff like that?
There weren't any we carried over?
They don't have any carryover, they're quite expensive.
You saying there were none in the old building, none in the old judicial building?
AEDs are sort of like a lot of tech stuff after 2 or 3 years, well, probably less than that
It's,
right now. They are,
They've got to be replaced every 5. They've got to
if
be
not, the
replaced every
pads and
5.
the motherboard in it has to be, so it's better just to get new ones.
Kind of shelf life.
I just thought that'd be included in the construction and the furniture, fixtures, and equipment includes everything to me, then.
I don't know.
I mean, it could
can't
have
speak
been,
to
the
that,
AEDs
what
could have
it
been, but the medical bags and the.
Oh, maybe not the
gunshot
medical
wound.
bag, the AEDs are mounted in a box on the
That's
wall,
correct.
or whatever that.
And we're mounting these, they'll be in every hall, so.
Yeah, there'll be, each end of the floor, on each floor, will have an AED, medical bag, trauma bag, in
They'll
case
need
of a
those.
gunshot wound bag and things of that nature, so we can,
Are y'all gonna teach these judges how to use them?
I'll end up having to use it on them.
we'll be,
One for
Jail. Jail one.
Yeah,
You wanna go on and do that one
Yeah,
too?
we can just do it all at once with no objection.
Okay, and then, I'm having to increase my extraditions, custodial supplies, and utilities, but I'm taking it from my food supplies. So the total's 96.5. I have to expand or increase their overtime, and I'm taking it out of the salary line item.
Make the motion to approve the request as presented.
I'll second. Commissioner Shackler, Commissioner Payne. It is interesting, we're able to take money out of food supplies here at the end of the year.
But my budget was well adjusted to the difference
In
this
years
year,
past,
so-
we used to get hammered on food supply the last 3 or 4 months of the year. We'd be adjusting 60, 75,000 per month, adding it and adding it and adding it. And I don't think your population's down tremendously out there, is it?
It's not down.
The contracts
The
were.
contract on what we did when we bid that and whatnot has significantly helped us in that area.
You must have watched the public safety then on TV because the same question was
Oh, did-
remarked about there.
I didn't watch that meeting, I just remember being
Yeah.
here and it coming up.
But we're, we have nothing to do with it
Yeah.
now, so we just pay the contract.
Well, we always get a jump in population when Bonneville comes to town.
Sometimes we do, yes.
We have a motion and a second. Call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Shafer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jerk?
Yes. An application for Spirit of Blue Foundation grant for Sheriff's Office. 14.
You just require, or asking that y'all give us permission to apply for this Spirit of the Blue Foundation grant for $24,395. And it's a narcotics hand analyzer that we can just go over a package, and it's gonna tell us if maybe we should check it more.
What's happened because of fentanyl in the drugs and whatnot, we are not able to take it out, test, or anything of that nature now. What this allows us to do is have a packaged product. We can analyze it through the package without having to handle the product itself. So it's an officer safety situation, plus to know what we're dealing with.
Are there any matching funds for the grant?
No, ma'am.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan. Call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Shafer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jerk?
Yep. We've got discussion of additional SRO positions in the 18-19 budget.
Okay, go ahead.
You want me to, how about if I just give a short review of what we hassled with for 20 or 30 minutes the other night? Okay, the end result was the recommendation for 3 new SROs to come online on the 2nd of January this coming year, 19. 2 of them will be in training for Rockville High School and the other one for Rocky Fork Elementary School. And some other thing, the reason some came out is it was believed that the SRO, it's got to be a full-time person. The part-times aren't going to work because with what they have that goes out with the FMLA, private industry business, higher paying law enforcement jobs at the state, FBI, what is it, alcohol, TF, is that the one? You know, those type things. And I know from when I was at the assessor's office a few years ago, we get people in, they get comfortable working in the county, in the state, pay them about 25% more than we were paying. And just several of them went up there. And it's the same thing that happens in law enforcement, and especially now with employment and higher money. Often, generally, if somebody is out, the supervisor covers for absenteeism, supervisor sergeants that they have out there on the short term. Plus, the training time, it takes up to 2 full years. And for a person to last as an SRO, obviously, one of them is they got to get along with people and, and learn and get the trust of the kids in the school that they're at, so that they will come to them. And that is why full-time, because they're going to be in one school, at least for a while, whereas if we got part-time and had to bring them in all over, different schools, different days. The schools change in the way they were designed over time. Another thing is it cost $68,000 up front for certification. And that includes the training, the 3 months that they send future officers to, and they got to be post-certified, this type thing, and a car is in there somewhere. It's got to come from, even if it's a used one. But then we got to get a new one, and then it's an ongoing cost of $55,000 to $60,000 per year with benefits is what it's going to cost roughly. And to bring them in, they'll have a fair amount of this training out of the way when the school opens in August. Those 2 schools, and that's why the 1st of January. And it came through public safety unanimously, just feeling it was better off getting the permanent ones. And the sheriff, the sheriff's office is the one that made a decision for us that full-time would be better than part-time. And the other thing, the big item that came out, is any future school from now on, when we start the planning of it, that we need people from public safety on there, just so we make it the safest way possible. And that's what we're bringing here tonight. And I think to me, I thought it was a great idea, the whole thing that we've talked about and what I just mentioned, and I'll make the motion that we approve 3 new SROs starting in January 1st. Second, yeah. They won't be around on the 1st.
We have a motion and a second, but Ms. Nolan wants to add something to it.
Just salaries for the 3 for half a year is $91,115. The SRO training equipment and car will add $195,100.
Yep, $280,000.
And so, if I understand what you said, the committee did not feel like we need to have substitute SROs on standby.
Yeah.
You've kind of referred to them as part-time, even though it seems like they could they could be employed full-time. They might just be floating from school to school or wherever they're needed the
doubling
most.
up there, or even if they were full-time, and they would go to different schools all the time. Which
And that one does not
a supervisor's probably better off at that and have people there full-time at those schools, so they know the schools, know the kids as much as possible.
And the sheriff's department feels like one supervisor is able to.
Well, there's more than one.
More than one, okay.
They've got.
We've got 6 supervisors that augment. What we do is the supervisors are in an elementary location. When we have a vacancy for whatever the reason may be in high school or middle school, we will take that person and move them over into that setting. And then we will then half day or whatever in the elementary to get to the locations until we get that supervisor back in the location they're supposed to be. What it started out in is the discussion started out, and we'll call them not part-time, but substitute, I guess is the word that was being used, started out, and then I think the discussion kind of moved around to that we've got 2 schools opening August of next year, and trying to get ahead of the curve and have all this training and everything in place, ready to go, and then they will be in school when the school opens, as opposed to what's been done in past years is the school's open and we don't have an SRO because we've just now funded them, and then we're going through a 6-month training period. Normally, we get the SROs from 2 locations. One is they're going to come from a certified position, a patrol position, within our ranks. Or we will find a certified officer that comes to us from another location. A certified officer that comes to us from another location, we do save our academy training expense, but we still have a 16-week program that they will go through with our agency. If we bring somebody from our patrol division, then of course obviously what we're replacing is our patrol officer. And we've got a criteria now that anybody that we move into our school has 2 years of law enforcement experience under their belt before we move them in. We don't want to put a brand new rookie in a school situation. So that's kind of
it evolved, I think it started out as a discussion there and then evolved into the schools that are opening and trying to get ahead of the curve on that. So that's kind of what led us to that area. So.
Also, we've been clustering our schools. You know, some of them we have elementary, middle, and high school close, and even like at Rocky Fork, we have elementary and a middle school together. It's got its good things and its bad things, because that's two schools. But there's backup right there from one school to the next.
Well, and that's a huge advantage. And I think somebody had asked in one of the meetings, is our response time, because of the arrangement of how we have our SROs. If we have an incident at a school, of course, obviously you've got an SRO present. So your response time there is wherever they may be to get to it. The backup coming to it is 4 minutes and 52 seconds, whereas our average response time on all of our calls, taking that out of it, is like 12 minutes. So we take very seriously, regardless of what type of call it is in our school setting, we have an immediate response.
Plus, I guess you could say Rutherford County, when our first SROs went in the 4 big high schools that we had back in '93, and that led the state in having SROs in. Plus, what are we now, about the 5th or 6th year of having every school has, all the high schools have 2 SROs, and all the other schools have an SRO in it. And we can see what happened this past year when all you had to do was look around the mid-state. All these other counties were running around like crazy trying to find people to fill those spots, because all of a sudden it came big from everybody. And we've managed to be ahead of the ballgame, and hopefully we can stay that way.
We are, and we're trying to stay that way. One of the biggest problems we've got, and we're facing the same thing that everybody's facing, is we're not losing people to other police agencies. We're losing them to outside industry. We can't compete with that type of salary. And so the people that we're leaving, not only in detention, but in our patrol ranks or even in our SO ranks, we've had 2 that's, I think, gone to the military, back to military.
One's a pilot.
One's a pilot, went back to be a commercial airline pilot because he got pilots. So, used to, you would say the surrounding areas we were losing to the other agencies, and that's not the case anymore. It's a construction job, of course, a much bigger, higher paying job. So that, and it's not just us, it's everybody's facing that same problem. If we can get outside the industry to quit grabbing our people, then we'll be able to keep them. So.
I have a question. Would it be worthwhile the next time we plan a school, and we know it's coming online, would it be worthwhile to go ahead and start that process even sooner so that we could have these folks trained and they might have some time to apprentice with the current SRO?
Oh, I think it'd be an excellent idea, and this is why I liked what came out of public safety, where I think for the first time that we're going to get ahead of the game and
But these folks won't
have
have
these
time to
people in
apprentice.
and play. These will be experienced officers. They will not be experienced as far as being in the school setting, because
Right.
they will be new as far as an SRO. They're not going to be new as far as an officer, but I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, help us remember that next time,
I
because
will.
I do think there's some value to that.
No, I think there was a very good discussion that came out of public safety, and this is going to help us in the future. I think, and part of that discussion is when you have a new school, of course, obviously, you go ahead and plan for your principal and so forth, and you staff ahead of time. This should be no different.
Right.
Should be no different.
I'm just thinking, if we time this right, that person would have time to apprentice at an actual school
That's
versus coming on in the summer and then,
That's correct.
yeah.
So, very good discussion came out of public safety.
Also, that recommendation of when a new school is being planned is that there is public safety people with the school board, the architects, et cetera, in the discussion of how it's going to be
Thoughts
set
there.
up.
I mean, we're not experts as far as construction and planning, but we are safety conscious, and sometimes that we can look at maybe an entrance or how you're coming off of the main road into a school, or things of that nature, and things that our people do look at, and we might be able to lend some suggestions that in the very early planning stages that might make it a little safer environment to be in. So, and we're just not asking that, other than include us at that part, and maybe that we'll have some suggestions from a safety standpoint that we'll be able to add to it.
That could be a conversation for the school systems officials, Mr. Sandvig. I'm looking back at you, if we're in the future, is We've got a new assistant superintendent of construction, Trey Lee, coming on board 1st of July, I think, or moving up in position. But yeah, I would hope if there's any gaping problems or glaring problems in any of the other schools, that'll be brought to the school system's attention. Like, hey, we don't need to have this blind corner here. Hey, we don't need to have this entryway come a certain way. And something we can change on the drawing board to the next school before an incident actually happens. And yeah, I think we should look at making it standard policy. I know we bring the principal, the librarian, a handful of people on board up to a year ahead of a school opening. And that's something the school system and the mayor and the next mayor ought to look at to make sure this be standard policy. Let these people be getting up to speed, maybe even be around while the school's constructed, learning the facility and be familiar with it so they'll know all the ins and outs and things like that.
Well, and in that planning stage, I mean, there'll be some things that the industry itself will know, and from a homeland security standpoint, will apply. But I think there's a lot of local knowledge that you might know
Oh, yes.
that you could apply to specific school sites.
Yes.
So that, I think that's a great idea.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation out of public safety, which is to bring these three on January 1st.
Second. January 2nd.
I think we got a second.
No, January 2nd was it.
Or January
It's a
2nd.
Monday.
Oh, I thought it was January. In January. okay.
Yes.
There's no more discussion? Call the roll?
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Motion passes. Commissioner Schaefer.
Later, well, I guess we put this in the sheriff's budget, so we're going to have to do that, next time we meet for the budget or tonight?
No, item number 38.
Oh.
Several of these items like
Oh, review budgets is necessary. Okay.
We'll
Thank
get
you.
done about 9:30.
No. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
we'll go home and watch y'all television. Thank y'all, appreciate it.
That'll be something better to watch tonight.
Well,
We've got number 22, a general fund budget amendment for autopsies.
This is a request out of unassigned fund balance of $65,000 to pay for autopsies, hopefully for the rest of the year. As of right now, our cost of autopsy is 15% more than it was last year for the same time.
That's the only way of choice on it. Move to approve them. Thank you, Commissioner Ely.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Pete. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a general fund budget transfer for finance.
And we were notified in September that the comptroller is going to increase their fee for audit by 3%. I held on to this because I thought maybe monies would come available, and there was a conference that had a conflict for Mark and I both and other employees, so we had money in travel that we're going to move to pay for the audit services.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a general fund budget transfer amendment for unclaimed property.
And this is a request for $6,000 out of unassigned fund balance, and this is to pay payment of unclaimed property from 2012. That this is where we get the money from the state that we've sent in for unclaimed property. Then somebody comes up and provides the documentation, and that we do owe it.
Well, we discussed that when we started doing that several years
That
ago.
it
There
would
is a
ha- that it would
liability.
happen.
Yeah.
And so this is a $6,000 claim.
Motion to approve is something we owe.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Payne.
Second.
Commissioner Allen. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. General fund budget amendment for renovation of former judicial building. Mr. Mayor, you taking that one?
Okay, yes, sir. As you're aware, we've been through a second study, you might say, on the repurposing of the previous judicial building. And Grisham and Smith has done that study both times. And property management, over a series of months, we've actually worked with all the departments that potentially going to move in there. So they have selected a scenario And we'd like to go ahead and start the design of the repurposing of the judicial building to house OIT, risk management, HR, and the elections commissions. We want to include this as a part of the work that the PBA is doing, but we cannot, we thought maybe we could actually use the same participants that they'd already selected, but this is a different project, so we have to actually have another agreement with the PBA. But we can, as the county, we do have the ability to hire a professional, so we think, and property management agrees with this, that using this same firm that's done the study for us now twice, they're better equipped and ready to go, so we can actually engage them, and then we will basically assign them over to the PBA, but we will have to get the PBA with a new agreement. We're working on that even now. Josh and I will meet tomorrow, so, and they have consented to do this again at the same price, no cost, the PBA membership. But in any event, the first, all this is going to do is give us permission to sign an agreement with them, an architectural contract with them to just do the basic schematic design, and then that will start, and concurrent with that starting, then we'll actually start up this process with the PBA to pick a owner's representative, a project, and then a construction manager as well. So those three people will wind up being the team that actually does the same kind of thing that we did with the Judicial Center, just be a lot less, you might say, involved in the difficulty of it. So we're requesting that we authorize the execution of a contract for $66,700 to do the basic schematic design work for the beginning of this conversion and refurbishing of that building.
Is that going to be the total
No,
architecture
that's just,
that
no,
we'll
sir.
need?
It'll be something over, I think it's 200 and something thousand for the whole construct. This will not put us to the point of actually starting any actual construction documents, but it'll be the preliminary design and getting everything laid out. Basically, is how we want these buildings used and which floors and all that, which has already been done to some degree through the scenario selection.
So where are you getting that other number you just kicked out? Didn't you say 200?
Well, see, the whole thing in the proposal that we have here for, let me just get to that page if you don't mind, which would include, this is project initiation, schematic design. Then the next phase would be actual building of construction documents, from which a lot more detail is done there that would be used for the actual contractor to use to build what's going to actually happen.
Basically converting courtrooms over to office space.
Yes, all of that, yeah, has to
whatever.
change. Yes, that kind of process.
But you're still talking design fees, so like that.
This is just,
Yeah,
we'll
this is
get,
still the-
this won't get anything that you could take a bid from yet, but they're going to start the process and work together with the project, the owner's rep, and a contractor to iterate down to the best price, just like we did before on the big judicial center. But we'll just have that one piece in place. We'll have the architect in place, and then we'll put the other two pieces together. The PBA will put those other two pieces together just like they did previously.
So we're going to pay a pre-fee before we get the actual engineering fee, is basically what this is.
No, Mr. Johnson is here. He might can explain this a little bit.
Yeah,
This is something you're going to pay for anyway. It's not paying for something twice. Okay?
This is the first 25%.
If you would state your name for
I'm
the
Steve
record.
Johnson with Gresham Smith and Partners. This is the first, we call it schematic design. It's the first 25 to 30% of the work that will be involved to create the documents for the repurposing. So it jump starts it, gets us going.
We don't bid our, has this gone under bid? Maybe I'm stating that the wrong
Yeah,
way.
professional services is one of the few things, that maybe the only thing that we can do without taking bids. And
So our engineering fees on this will take without bids. Is that what you're saying?
yes, if we can take engineering and architectural fees, we can engage with those professionals without taking bids. That's been that way the whole time.
Well,
State statute
it's also been
specifically.
that way with our schools.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, this is not a new TCA.
Well, I know
It's
we've always taken bids on our schools for a long
Not,
period of time.
not on your architect
Not
or
on-
engineering. You may have had requests
I
for
recall having a
proposals.
lawsuit on that issue, so.
They do request for proposals.
Okay.
And a lot of times they you do it and then you do it, you use the same firm.
And I'm not saying that these guys wouldn't be the best ones, especially with the knowledge. I'm just questioning our process here.
Well, I
Yeah,
like
they-
they've got a good working relationship with the PBA. And we're getting a lot of free labor out of the PBA, and they've done a wonderful job on the judicial building, the new judicial building. And I like bringing somebody on that's got a working relationship there and that works hand in hand with the PBA well.
But you said OIT, HR, Election Commission, and who else? would be-
Risk management.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the existing people that are in there, I mean, there's some, is there anybody left in there that was there
No.
before?
It's empty.
They've all moved.
It's completely empty.
Well, there's four
it's
floors
full
or
of-
three?
It's 5 floors.
Five
left.
floors. All 5 floors, we're only gonna get that? What you lifted, I thought we'd get
Well,
more
it's-
bang for our buck.
It's only about 30,
It's 30,000
only
square feet.
30,000 square feet of usable space there.
Yeah.
Back in the schools, though, when we used the same architectural firms on those schools, we got less price because we used the same one and we used their design, and a lot of them, we didn't even change it at all. We got, I think it fit on the land. And by that way, we got lower percentage because it was the same, pretty much the same thing as what we did before. We did, I know with elementary, middle schools, some high schools too. The last two were similar.
We hired Gresham Smith to present us the different scenarios for what to do with these buildings. I forget what that price tag was. Do you think we're getting some cost savings since they've already been involved in that work and are already familiar to some extent with our needs and what these buildings involve?
I can't really answer that. I mean, I think we're getting cost savings. The product is going to get produced. I think they're much, much better equipped to produce the best, most efficient, least costly product.
It certainly reduced our fee because of all that work we have done through the property committee meeting. Well, you're on that
Property
committee,
management,
yeah.
right.
Property management, excuse me. So, yeah, the programming, the relationships with all the departments, and the layout, we've done a test fit of how these folks fit into the building, and that's what we expect to pick up that work and keep going with it. So this fee doesn't include, revisiting any of that. We're assuming that's all good and we keep going.
And so, for example, if you'd been a new partner brought on board after someone else had done all this, you'd have to go back and do
There
those
would be
steps. Right.
some fee to get familiar with all of that, yes.
So
some of that,
there's
yes.
that savings. Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve if there's no more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Healy.
Clarify what we're approving here. This is
We're-
a budget
We're
amendment.
approving a budget amendment of 66.7, and coupled with that, the execution of a standard form AIA contractual agreement between owner and architect for schematic design services.
We're showing this as a transfer to other funds. We're going to set up a new capital project.
Commissioner Allen, Commissioner Healy, you both agree with that on the motion, second use.
Does this commit us to the architectural firm that we're approving here for the rest of it?
I think that would be a logical, we're probably going to hand them off to the PBA and let them continue with them. Yes, but I think we're picking them to do this architectural work for that.
So we're basically looking at, what, another 250?
No, not another 200. The total, I think, was 200 and something, including construction documents, bidding, and construction administration. 243 would be the total.
You know, the only, and I understand what you're saying, that we don't have to, but to me, it just makes good sense to get bids on something like this, and not anything against your firm. But I mean, that's a lot of money.
I like the fact that we're getting some cost savings because it's a company that's already down the pipe a good ways, and we're not going back and repaying somebody to do the same job over again. And somebody's got a working relationship with the PBA and then hit the ground running instead of spending the next 60 days getting bids in and potentially bring somebody in for minor cost savings and having to start from square one again. And all of a sudden we're 6 months down the road and nothing's happened. I'm of the idea that this is going to progress fairly quickly because everybody on board is ready to move forward, and stuff. But, any more discussion?
What do you think the time frame is going to be before you're ready to begin working with the PBA?
Well, at first, he can't work the PBA until we get the PBA agreement and the commission approves that, okay? So it'll take us, we're not gonna meet in July, so it'll probably be August before we can get the PBA business actually done, but he can go ahead and start doing his preliminary work.
Start work immediately.
Yeah, I was trying to get an idea of like time frame of progression.
Well, I expect the schematic phase, which is what we're talking about, to take between 2 and 3 months, depending on availability of people to meet and approve things. It's about 2 to 3 months to get past that phase of the work.
And then do you have any expectation before, how long after that before people are actually moving in?
Well, I think the entire design phase takes about 6 months to get construction documents ready to bid and permitted. And then the construction is 6 to 8 months. So if we moved through this quickly, it would be 12 to 14 months the building could be occupied, if we pushed on through quickly.
Fall of 19 or early 20, something like that, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Let's call the roll, see what happens.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much. We got a general fund budget amendment for Lytle Street.
And Mr. Chairman, if we could, let's let Mr. Jerry Preston, with your permission, is he still in here? Yes, he is. This is,
All right, Mr. Preston, welcome.
and Mr. Preston, some of you may not know, he is the owner's representative on the Judicial Center that we've just constructed. So he has been a invaluable asset to this whole process. He knows it inside and out better than probably any of us do. But in any event, I'm going to simplify it. He's here to answer the detailed questions. You all know that Lytle Street has been under construction and still under construction over there. And it was an integral part of what has been going on with what we've done with the garage and the Judicial Center. And the first thing we did is we agreed to partner with the city of Murfreesboro on the cost of the design work. And I think we spent like $180,000 for that piece.
Right.
I don't know.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And now past that, we didn't agree to anything else except we made sort of a good faith agreement that whatever we would have had to have done with the construction of our garage and the Judicial Center, if there had not been a Lytle Street upgrade, we would have incurred certain cost. And those things are all the things that we knew that we should do. I mean, it was the right thing to do, and we would have to do that. So this has gone through a long iterative process, and we've had some difficulty determining what we thought was our part of the cost and what they thought was the right part of the cost for those things that had some impact on that Lytle Street construction. In any event, after an elongated review, and we've even hired one engineer to help us take those construction drawings on Lytle Street and go through it line item by line item and determine which ones of those things applied to us on our properties and not on other pieces of the streets, etc. And after an extended period of time, this has been going on more, a couple of years?
It actually started and we had the agreement went in place in February of 2015. So it's been over 3 years.
And anyway, after substantial time, the city engineer finally came to some agreement with us that he would accept our numbers, and we had so what we've come up with there, and the city of Murfreesboro has accepted his recommendation on this amount of money for us to pay an additional $861,604. And what we're asking for is for us to and Ms. Nolan has a plan on how we would get that $861,604 of additional money to pay. So that's, I don't know, you got this as a budget amendment proposed?
I do.
Now, that's, Mr. Preston, if you have any thing that sort of would add any clarity to this for those that haven't heard all this story before, it's your opportunity for you to ask him or otherwise get further explanation.
I just might mention, the number that started out was $1,565,162.25. So it was over $1.5 million, and where we've ended up total, counting the design that the mayor has mentioned, with the $180,808 that's already been paid, then the total amount that the county would be involved in that project would be the $1,042,412. So we've been able to reduce it by over $500,000 is what we've been able to do, and come up with the amount that the mayor said that would be an additional payment of $861,604. But we did go through a very detailed line item by line item analysis of the bid that the city took on Lytle Street, and isolated the things that we thought that applied to this particular project, and came up with that number.
So you both feel comfortable with this number?
We are very comfortable with this number. This is not.
The city got an improved road out of the deal, and it looks like we're paying a whole lot of money for something that's a city street, so seemed like a big number to me.
Well, we're about, what we did is just real quick, not to get into too much detail, but we took actually half of the road all the way around both of our blocks is what we did, to 50% of that. Then we looked at that estimate, and we took out the things within that 50% that did not apply to us. And then we came up with a base number is what we did. And then the other elements, like street lights and things of that nature, signal lights and traffic signal lights and things of that nature. Our part was, the whole project was 14 blocks. Our part was 5.5 blocks of that, and we took half of that, and then that ended up being 39%. So all of the elements that applied to us, we took, like I said, the light standards and also the traffic light standards and so forth. We took 39% of that, and then we calculated really 50% of the road around ours, and took out the things that didn't apply to us and came up with the number. But we have a line by line, it's very detailed analysis that we went through. And I'll just, and it just goes item by item by item. I mean, we used the actual construction unit prices that were actually bid for those line items, and calculated that, came up with the number.
So if the city hadn't had a Lytle Street project going on, we would have done a lot of this ourselves.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Within building those two facilities.
That's absolutely correct.
That's the number that detailed worksheet there came up.
Pretty much what we would have spent.
What we would have spent.
Regardless of what the city
Yes.
did, yeah.
That's correct.
right.
That's correct.
What exactly, you said 5.5 blocks.
That's correct.
We're talking Lytle Street. That's what we're partially responsible for. So where does that go? Tell me the streets that is involving into that.
The streets around the garage are Walnut, Lytle, and Maple.
Okay.
And then the streets around the Judicial Center are Lytle and Maple and Burton and Church. So those are the elements that we were involved in.
Well, I just remember that it seems like every time we got into something with Murfreesboro and roads, that if we handled like Wholesale Pike, we came on budget. If the other one that went at the same time that Murfreesboro did went over budget. The Florence Road change up here, it came back and was what, 440,000 more per group, for each of us. It was, the cost was when they handled that one, and that's what I'm just leery. That's why.
Well, and we stayed on our number. I mean, once we went through the analysis and we went through the very detailed analysis, we did not move off our number. The only thing that we did add that they came back and we discussed was really the street lights around the Judicial Center. And we added that back in because we would have had to do that, and we didn't include that in the original estimate. But other than that, we did not move, once we set our number, we did not move off that number other than for the street lights.
Okay, you're talking street light, not stoplights.
No, just street lights, just that are on our sidewalks and
You
around our
mentioned
property.
traffic lights a few minutes ago, I believe.
The traffic
So
lights, what we did
we
is.
paid part of that.
Well, we took 39% of that, but that was in the original number. And they were the only ones that were added, around the garage as well as the Judicial Center. But we did take 39% of those.
And I'll tell you, the PBA has reviewed this, so they have been very, very detailed in their review to be sure that this was fair and equitable.
I've heard some frustration from some PBA members about how about this has been.
It's been a long
For some
process,
time.
and we have presented it to the PBA a number of times as this has moved along, and really compared the numbers that the city had presented versus the numbers that we wanted to go with. But, we held firm really with the numbers that we started with once we did our analysis.
I've got another question. What I heard in the planning in jails, judicial buildings, etc., around the area of the Clarksville and stuff like this, but others had said that the judicial building needs to be downtown to make the downtown more viable.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I guess from sales tax that we get some of it for school in the city of Murfreesboro, I guess that helps us out then, I guess, from that standpoint. That's what I'm getting at. It seems it makes it a lot more viable with the people that come in here for the city of Murfreesboro than us, but I just want to make sure I heard right before.
Yeah, that's correct, and it's important to the urban fabric, of the downtown to keep it viable or help keep it viable.
What are the wishes of the committee?
This seems like an equitable, distribution for me. As I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking about from being on planning commission, if we had a developer come in who tore up roads, we would expect him to put the roads back and to county standards. So it's the same thing for the city.
That's
So,
correct.
so I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Jernigan beat you to it. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, we've done a lot of roads with Murfreesboro City, and, I've got mixed emotions over some of them there, but I think, being equitable and fair is where we need to be. If we caused some disruption there, we need to make our part right. So I feel like that's why we're doing this.
I haven't been down there in a little while. Is it everything open now, or is part of Lyle still closed? For those
Yes.
poor vendors down
What
there,
they-
some of those shops now people have to almost take a mule to get into some of
Well,
those places.
what they did do, and to our advantage, is because the project did run late and it's run long. They were supposed to be through with the overall project at the same time that the judicial building finished. In other words, they had a 2-year window that they were to be finished, but that certainly didn't happen, and they're way over that time frame. So what they did, which was to our advantage, they really focused all the work between Walnut and Church and around our building to Burton, so that they could get the roads open when the building opened, which they pretty much met. But everything from Barker up to Walnut is now under construction. So that half of the project is still under construction and will be for a while.
I would like to make one comment. Burton Street, that improvement there was not initially planned as part of their project. They took that on as an additional plan as part of their project and really, really helped the whole project, the whole neighborhood back there. So that's, they did do that, which has really been very, I think, good to really make Burton, the health department, all that fit together even so much better than it would have otherwise.
Right. It allowed us to have really parking on the back side of the building where we'll park sheriff vehicles that show some level of security right there.
I just know the Quick Mart was up where the judicial building is.
That's correct.
And they were displaced. They moved down
That's correct.
Front Street, and they've been pretty much shut down because of all the construction. I wouldn't go in there and tell them I was with the county at any time soon, because you might just get shot, because they're a little frustrated.
Yeah, I can
I can
understand.
imagine, or I've heard that,
Yeah.
because they had to move because of judicial
Right.
building, and now their customers can't get to them. But anyway, but hopefully that'll all wrap up their memory before long. We got a motion and a second. Ms.
Just
Nolan.
information, and just, the mayor gave you the number 861-604.
Our number's 580 on
Yes,
ours.
that's what I'm telling you.
But he's going to show you how
Well,
we're...
580 is coming over, and we're using 400 out of the development tax, 180 out of fund balance. And we have about 283,000 in an old city-county road project, some old bond money that will go the rest of it. If there is money, we'll go ahead and fully fund this. If there's money left in the project after it's done, I'd recommend to come back to the reserve for capital and replace that first.
And we don't know the precise number, but Mr. Preston, we think it could be $200,000 possibly that we'll not be using out of the actual construction funds.
I think that's a pretty good number.
Which will come back.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? If not, call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Preston.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your service during these last
Thank you.
few years
Appreciate
doing
it.
this.
This won't be on the consent agenda next Thursday, will it? Well,
No,
let's
it's
just make
coming
sure.
out of
it's
unassigned.
Unassigned,
It's
all
coming out
that,
of
okay,
unassigned.
we go on the consent agenda. We got a general fund budget amendment for retiree leave.
We've got two individuals retiring that have max amount of annual leave that we'll have to pay out by June 30th. One in the finance department, so we need to add $7,950, and one in inspection, $8,540. So a recommendation is to transfer $17,755 out of unassigned fund balance to be able to pay these by June 30th.
It's their money.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Fee.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. All around.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. General fund budget amendment for unemployment.
We've got a pooled amount of $20,000 for unemployment, not knowing where it will be. Now we know about where it is. So we're requesting $9,660 out of the pooled unemployment to go to the various departments you see. Election Commission, Property Assessor, Jail, Workhouse, and other local health.
Wasn't a lot higher.
Did Robert Arnold come back?
I mean, no, they've got more bodies than the other ones have.
And you talked about their turnover.
Yeah.
I'm sure if it's here.
Turnover,
If they're leaving for better employment, we're not paying
Yeah,
unemployment.
But
So
when you're
it's,
full employment, how do you have unemployment?
it very well could, I mean, it's
Give me an
interesting how
example,
we
please.
do.
The other job that they took.
We didn't cut jobs,
They
did we, this year?
leave, okay, there's two different ways. I'm gonna give you more information that you want, but there's two ways to fund unemployment with the state. One is be a premium payer, and you pay 7% of your salaries. You're done, but we are reimbursement. We pay only when people use it, okay? It's quite a bit of money. If you think how much our salaries are, if we were paying 7% for premium, we'd be paying a lot more. But what happens if I left Rutherford County on my own and I went to another employer and was terminated from that employer, the state would go back to all my previous employers and collect a portion for this payment. So that's why sometimes it comes back to us paying on somebody who we either terminated for cause or they left on their own. So
It's a messed up system. I've always fussed about it.
But-
Somebody walks away and they done, they get fired on the next job, and we're paying their unemployment. They
A portion.
resign from their position,
a portion,
you know.
but it's still a whole lot less than if we
Put
were
on your
paying.
list of things for
It's
the
nice.
next
Yeah.
state
When I give my speech next time, I throw that in? Okay.
For the next, for our representatives to work on the next session.
Yeah.
You marking these down, Charlie?
That's right. Yeah, tell Charlie.
Yeah. I think we owe the money regardless.
Oh, we have to pay it.
Yeah.
And you may not know this, I know, like through our company, you have a chance to appeal if somebody applies for
Yes.
employment. Do we have that chance?
Yes,
Does she do
Sonia
that?
appeals every.
So she challenges it.
Oh,
this
gosh,
is-
yes.
These are ones we've lost.
Yes. That's another whole conversation we should have with her.
Okay.
Because it used to be really bad.
But just because somebody quit the job here and went and got fired next job is not a reason to get us off the hook.
Well,
The
no,
rule, we're still owe, even though it's morally wrong, in my
There
opinion.
was a period of time she would fight every one of them and then still give it to her.
Great.
We would be, it would be for cause.
Yeah.
And the
We've had
state
that.
would still give it to them.
Right.
So,
Well,
anyway.
before we vote on this, can you explain at the workhouse? That's a pretty good size number. Was that one person? Or do you know, is it several?
Now, the
Workhouse is 1,000.
7,500 is coming from jail. Workhouse is 1,000.
Oh, it looked like workhouse to me
Yeah.
too.
Election
It
40.
started at the top,
okay,
elections,
okay.
it's below it.
Okay, thank you. Was that several people at the jail, or was it just one?
You're supposed to know all this stuff.
Mark pays this bill, so I don't.
Oh, you-
I want to say it's 3 people,
Three
I believe.
Pretty good chunk of money for 3 people.
One of them was up in rank.
But if we were paying 7% of our salary, it would be a tremendous number.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, still,
Bill, we gotta pay.
We're paying
This is-
part of
This
this.
is only 9,600
For the whole year.
for the whole year.
Yeah, but we haven't been this low in unemployment since they started keeping records, is everything you hear. Okay.
Need a motion.
Make a motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Commissioner Haley. Anything else you want to add, Commissioner Shepherd? Still grumbling, I was going to give you a
I'll vote for it, but it's just one is, it's ones that you hate to.
You got that one. That one's next.
Yeah, we got it. Call roll.
Yeah.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Amendments to contract with Tennessee Department of Mental Health for evaluations and treatment.
Yeah, this is the one that,
They used to pay.
yeah, that we used to pay, that the state used to pay for everybody, and now the county is responsible for those 4 misdemeanors. And some of the questions that we had last year, was it last year or the year before, was do we have to use them? And the answer is yes. There's not a choice to use anybody else. We have to use them.
What if we don't sign this contract?
And that professional services?
It is professional service.
But they're not listed under professional services in TCA.
But I think of this one, there's somebody who says this is who you have to use.
This is the judges, when they have people that they need to consider, are they mentally competent and such? This is where they send these people for mental evaluations to determine.
And the state mandates where they go, and the state sets the prices.
Yeah, they're right.
They could set the price at $1 million a person, we wouldn't have any choice.
But that's,
But the rate has not changed.
Charlie, filling the list.
The rate's not changed.
Oh, but we did check it a couple of years ago, and their rates wwere cheaper than other places.
And once the judges realized we were having to pay, they got a lot more, started scrutinizing us a lot more. So we got hit pretty hard with 1 or 2 cases when nobody realized the bill got taken from the state and given to us, was it?
Yeah, and we didn't get the bill for several years after it had occurred, too. So,
Oh, yeah, we recall.
What was this? Unfunded mandate, sort of, kind of?
Sort of.
Beat you over the head with it, kind of? So regardless of what we do, this happens, whether we approve this or not. We can all vote no when this happens regardless, correct?
but you need to have the contract in place.
for?
Have they limited how much
Because that's the
we have to pay on
main
this?
time
It's so much
rate.
per, yeah.
They could give us a
It's
higher
like
rate.
$800 per evaluation typically, but it,
But I mean, we got hung over $100,000 or right at that.
That was
for one
because they were in
person.
treatment.
And they didn't limit it like they did for themselves when the state was paying for them. They left ours wide open, but it's limited now to some extent. Is
They
that
have
correct?
to, they have to.
they have to sort of keep us informed as to what's happening before they just keep them down there in a treatment program.
The judges are working with us
The
pretty
judges
well
are-
in this
yes,
point in
they're-
time, whether or not.
They're following this much more closely.
Well, I was just wondering if the legislation had finally closed that loop where it didn't leave it open-ended on us.
I don't remember. It seemed like 30 days, something about 30 days. But,
That one was over 100.
I think
Oh,
they did
something.
agree to give us some sort of notification when they'd been there an extended period of time.
but we haven't had anybody.
We hadn't had any.
Other than the evaluation and like a testing.
So just because they're being, being tested doesn't necessarily mean that it's going through the mental health court. This is just any misdemeanor that can be going through any
There's
court.
people that show up in court and they feel that the judges make a decision that they may have some mental deficiencies and they may need to know precisely if that's the case, and so they can decide how to deal with it.
Well, since we don't have a choice, I'll go ahead and make this motion that we accept this, I guess, this contract.
This contract.
We'll let the mayor sign it.
It's a 2-year contract, looks like.
It's just a 1 year.
Just
It's a 1 year extension of what
Motion,
we
do we have a
already
second?
have.
Thank you, Mr. Jernigan.
Can we add an amendment to make it under protest? I'm serious. I'll make an amendment that we approve
Will the
this
maker
under
of the- will the
protest.
maker of my motion agree to add that to his motion?
I don't have a problem.
I can make a
Because
second.
I'm not happy about it. Don't misunderstand me, but
I don't want to add it on my part.
Well, we've got a motion and a second, but we've got an amendment, because the amendment hadn't been accepted by the maker of the second. So if you want to make that official amendment to the motion, do we have a second to the amendment?
Yeah, I do want to make that
I'm taking your amendment, I'm
Yeah.
asking for a second for your amendment. Sorry, but your amendment dies for lack of a second.
Yeah, I have to vote
All right.
no then.
Let's vote on the motion that's originally made. Call the roll.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Peak?
yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
I abstain.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a general fund budget amendment to revenue and corresponding.
Okay, I'm gonna give y'all some information. Go that way and pass that on down. This is your, I'm gonna start with this before we start amendments.
We got enough in there?
You need, I got more. How many more you need?
Find out more.
They need
Y'all got
to.
enough.
I got plenty.
Here you go.
I got plenty. Okay, so you're used to seeing this. So I'm kind of talking about revenue adjustments for the current year that flow into our estimates of fund balance for next year. That's why I'm giving you this. So the green, I've highlighted green on top. These are the total increases that we will be increasing to fund balance, unassigned fund balance. We'll go through each one. Where you have the red arrow, these are the adjustments that we've done tonight. We reduced our unassigned fund balance by $335,455 with all the things that we did tonight, and solid waste by $50,000. So those come across. In the general fund, under appropriations, I've bolded that $103,067,000. That's with all the with the SROs, and there's another change in one other department, but that brings it up. So I'm kind of giving you an end of the story. I'm jumping almost down to 38, but I just wanted to let you have this and follow it as we go through the revenue adjustments. 103 million.
103 million.
103 million. Okay, just, yeah, okay. So now I'm ready. I just want y'all to see that as we go. So starting with revenue in the general fund. And I'll start at the end of the story. I'm increasing revenue $9,990,000, decreasing $962,967 after adjustments for reserves and increases for Stones River Greenway, Chamber of Commerce, and the Trustees Commission that total $1,971,000. My net increase to unassigned fund balance is $7,056,000. So you said, where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? We'll start at the first page of the general fund amendment. Almost $1.6 million comes from the county property taxes. And we've talked about it all along the year. We budget at 95.5. The trustee is collecting 98. We use assessments where they are now in May, June, and the assessor is continuing to work. The number goes up and it goes down, but what we have traditionally done is just settle on that number that we know in May and move forward. So you'll see any fund that has property tax increases for there. Under county local option, our hotel motel tax, I've kind of put that on the revenue sheets as being coming in a lot better. So I'm estimating $800,000 for it. Wheel tax at $205,000, and our litigation general. This is the one I've mentioned it a couple of times during the year, but with the change in software in the courts, where they identified every fee, fine, tax that's being charged, had to go back to a law before they could charge it. And then we went back to, well, how does it have to be spent? Could not find anywhere where it was identified, so we put it in the general fund. You'll see a reduction in the debt service because at some point, however the old system was, it was coming over in debt service, but now it's in general fund. So that's why you have the increase, that particular one at $560,000 increase there. Bank excise tax, that comes in one time, it comes in March. So it is an estimate, based on, you only have, what they do like in the previous years, but it really is how well our banks are doing. They're the ones who are paying the excise tax to the state and then is remitted to us.
Why did the wholesale beer tax go down 40,000?
It does. That one doesn't make sense. I would expect it to have been higher. And sometimes it's interesting you bring that one up because that's one that interests me. Sometimes
It's a big number.
when the economy goes down, beer tax goes up.
People are drinking higher priced stuff, I guess, on wine or something like that.
And so the fact that, it's gone down.
Is this
Anyway,
beer
it's
sold in the
just an
county, in the
interesting
rural
weird-
areas only, or is this beer sold anywhere within the county?
Oh, sorry, I think it's out in the county. In the
Out in
rural
the
area.
county.
Yeah, I've read a study nationwide where the economy's bad, the alcohol sales go up.
Yeah. It is that's
And it's
what I
reciprocal,
watched.
when the economy's better, they reduce.
I would have thought it would be the other way. Total permits, all having to do with building, which you've already seen that, we've talked about that, around 230,000 increase there. And when you get to the fines and fees, all the numbers that start with 4.2, those are monies coming from the courts. With the new system, things have been, the whole way that we account for it is different. Some the same, some different. So I just had to let it play out this year, find out where the money is now going to be accounted for, and go from there. But out of all the 4,200 numbers, fees, fines, and forfeitures, is an increase of about $134,000 in total for all those. It would have been a reduction had it not been for jail fees, 42450, the jail fees for the juvenile detention. I probably, I did decrease this compared to what they thought they would get. They were more right than me. So we are increasing that 300,000. So with the net effect of all of these lines increased 133. Like I said, it would have been less had it not been for those jail fees. Subdivision fees under the telephone. The telephone commissions right now are $155,000 more than they were at this time last year. So that was, that's just, it's coming in better than history. Next thing that I want to talk about, which is a large number, is investment income. When we talk about how much, you know, the rates have changed, you know, when you double, I mean, you've brought it up.
Yeah.
How much interest when we are getting paid. Of course, now if we borrow money, we have to pay a higher price, but it does help offset the cost of.
Oh, yeah, I remember those revenues from before this recession.
It was.
And the interest rates. I mean, it's really nice if you're out buying, you know, financing rather large stuff where the interest rates are low, but it's killing us.
So anyway, that's a good number. You'll see this throughout, well, you'll see this one, just interest income in this fund, debt service and highway.
What's the miscellaneous refund for 105,000? It's line 44,170.
That was one that is on, it came at the very beginning of the year. It seemed like it was $120,000 that came unexpected at the beginning of the year. I need to go back to my revenue sheet because I've noted on that in the very
It's
beginning.
5 times what we expected.
Yeah, it was not. It was 120 that came in unexpected. We never budget much of anything for sale of property or much for equipment because you really don't know what you're going to sell that year. Contributions are a yellow line because they're pretty much identified of where it's going to go somewhere. Get to the excess fees. Trustees commission, the trustees excess fees is really coming quite a bit, so that has been a real boon, and so has the county clerk. I mean, those are coming in better. Circuit court, I'm unsure on that one, so I did not make an adjustment. It may come in, I mean, last year she came in at the very end, and it was $850,000 is what she was ultimately did last year, so I just don't know at this point. So I just want to put it in there. I'm going to talk about some governmental accounting when you come on down to the 46,915 contracted prisoner board. And I've got $1 million there. Right now, it's about $1.6 million. Got $1 million in there that we are owed from the state. Governmental accounting, you count revenue when it's measurable and available. So if you look at it right now, it's measurable, I know what it should be, but it's not available, I can't get it.
How far behind are they on paying?
Back to, the last time we got was October 17. Now, the sheriff's department is current as far as sending it to them. They've got it. They were delayed a little, but they are up to date as far as the work at the sheriff's department to get to the state. Now we're waiting on the state. If it comes in by July or August, it depends on how the auditors, no more than 60 days. If I don't get it in by August, it's not counted as revenue this year. It's counted as revenue next year. So some of this money that we have right now, the $2,577,000, part of that was last year's money that we got this year. So this one is a little tricky. I wanted to, you know, if I would put it $1.5 million or $1.6 million if I thought I would get it all by June 30th. some of it may.
You
I
could get
guess.
a check tomorrow and it may be October.
I just don't know if I'm gonna have it in by July,
Mm.
and that's a hedge. Actually, I didn't have anything in there on my first iteration, that's why it's $1 million more than what I showed you earlier. It's because I thought I feel like I gotta put something in there in case it does come in.
You know, sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the oil, so what do we do to squeak?
You just call.
Do we do
Say,
that?
where-
Or
oh, yeah, we do.
that?
So where are you? Okay.
Sometimes we owe them money, we just wait.
So all of these increases and decreases, I mean, we've got after I finish this, I breathed a sigh of relief for next year. It's like, okay, I feel like we're gonna be fine this year and rolling into next year. So that is my amendment for the general fund.
Good news.
You need action on this?
Yes,
It's all good news.
yes, ups and downs. It is good news.
You need a motion to accept this report?
Well, it's an amendment. We're amending our budget.
Oh,
We're
okay.
amending revenues, so
For the
yes.
changes that you've made there. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Petty. Commissioner Jernigan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
Solid waste budget
Solid
amendments,
waste.
revenue and corresponding expenditure.
It won't take as long going through these other ones, but the general fund is kind of the most varied revenues that any fund that we have. Increasing local option sales tax, that's going into to that fund. Tipping fees, surcharges, we're increasing that $407,000. Now, next year, we're just not gonna have that tipping fee, but all that came in. Of course, now we're shut down. So in total, we are increases of $870,445, decreases of $157,537, with an increase to the trustees commission of $2,000. The net increase for assigned fund balance, $710,908.
Motion on that one? Motion approved. Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Commissioner Allen. Any questions on that one? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ambulance fund budget amendments to revenue and corresponding expenditures.
Okay, again, you see, on a smaller scale, those decreases for property tax. We're increasing patient charges, $385,000. So the net revenue is $573,200 to increase. That would a net increase. Decreases of $9,000 with the increase of trustees commission by $12,000. The net estimate for assigned for public health is $552,200.
Motion on that one.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Elling.
Second.
Commissioner Allen, any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one passes.
Okay.
Drug fund budget amendment to revenue.
Drug fund, the fees are not coming in for drug control fines. So we're reducing that, but they did have monies already come in for proceeds from confiscated property. Interest income for them also came in well. So our net, I'm not making a change to trustees commission, I think that'll be fine, but we're having a net increase for restricted for public safety of $10,675.
Motion to the committee.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaver.
Second.
Commissioner Baum. Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Highway fund budget amendment to revenue and corresponding expenditures.
So it's a repeat of property tax and local option sales tax, wheel tax, all that's coming through. Interest income for them too, we're at $105,000. Commissioner, I think you had asked before, one of you two, about how much did the increase for the motor tax.
Improve it.
Yeah. And so it's all flowing through into the 46920. The 3,635,000 was about what we were getting, and so it's adding, you know, I guess I look at $885,000 more. If you're just doing a comparison to what we typically do. So for all these,
That's for the whole county.
yes, sir.
That's for the county piece, right? All the
The
other
county piece.
municipalities get monies as well.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if it was split with them, so.
This is our part.
This is ours.
So increasing revenues by $1,453,230, decreasing $74,500 with an increase of the trustees commission in 23. We estimating an increase for assigned for highways at $1,355,730.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Jernigan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Debt service fund budget amendment to revenue and corresponding expenditure.
Okay. Now this one, where in the general fund, the development tax comes in and we restrict it, the money's coming into the debt service for development tax is already restricted. It's already coming in. We don't set aside a piece of it. It all kind of just goes into the bottom, down to the bottom line. Again, we're increasing the current property tax, and you see the increase in development tax in whole, $1,350,000. On 40250, you see the offset of $600, where you saw it come into the general fund out of debt service, but into general. This is where it's coming out. Investment income, $1 million. The increased rate is helping on this particular fund. Also, any monies that are on bond proceeds, those go 100% into this fund. Okay, so increases of $4,210,055, decrease of $680,000, increase trustees commission of $60,000 to have a net increase or assigned for debt service of $3,470,055.
So the litigation tax that's down 600, that's the one where you said you were just trying to flesh out the system to see
Where is it, should it be
Where should it be?
accounted for?
All the wishes of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Jernigan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? General fund budget transfer for salaries, number 36.
Okay. Again, you had the one where we had to take money out of unassigned fund balance for those two. We review all budgets, and these are the ones that we could find money within the category to take care of any increases or decreases. So there's several, but within Register of Deeds, there's $89 that their pension needed to be increased, but there was money in insurance. County buildings, there was a person to leave, but there was money in part-time that to cover it. Risk management, there was a difference of a pay from the person who left to the person who came back, to the person that would replace them, of $2,000, but it was within. Data processing, that's cleanup is $40, but we don't want it over. General sessions, short in deputies, but there was money in part-time. Victim assistance was $375, but there was money in part-time. Again, that was a change in personnel. Jail, they traded a lieutenant for a sergeant, so the sergeants needed more money, but there was money in lieutenants. Workhouse, their part-time needs more money, $1,400, but there was money in guards. Juvenile services, guards needed more money, but there was money in sergeants and attendants. And then local health, $75 for that line, but there was money in part-time. So all of that together for all the funds is $24,334, but it's within each category.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer. Better call the roll on this one.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes?
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Petty?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Solid Waste Fund budget transfers for salaries.
It was $30, and there was money in overtime.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Allen, Commissioner Schaefer. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes?
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Petty?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes, I did vote no, just so we all not be spending our time voting on a $30 budget transfer.
Should I put you down?
Review.
Under protest. It's protest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Under protest. Review 2018-19 budgets as necessary. And we've already covered some of this as we've been going.
We have, and so, I gave you, that's kind of the summary, but if we can go to the second sheet that we talk about the general fund. Right here,
Okay.
right here.
Well, Mike, was it early now?
Okay.
There's that gold in it.
Okay, so everything that's not bold, we've already talked about. The revenue at $95,667,800. This is Mike. There was a change in salary that we needed to increase with benefits, $8,634. You already talked about the SROs, the $91,115 and the $195,100. And I told you the last time, it was just a moving money. I did get with Mr. Mitchell and settle up where his people, which budget should the people be in. And so it was a net zero, but I did want you to know that we would increase property assessor budget by $35,500 and decrease reappraisal budget by $35,500. So if that meets with your approval, then I would, those last in bold, and I guess that's what I would need y'all to vote on, with the total being.
We've discussed the SROs, the property assessors.
Yeah, you've already done that, and that's nothing.
So
So
the only thing
really,
here we haven't already discussed
is
is.
that one salary, and then you'll have had everything.
You're talking about the one out of planning and engineering?
Yes, sir.
Mike, you want to come up here and tell us what's going on? Appreciate you sitting around.
Oh, that's all right. I would go to Bonnaroo with Ted Beatty if I could keep this key employee. Several years ago, we were fortunate to get an inspector from the city that had retired with 30 years of experience, but unfortunately, due to our rules, we were only allowed to pay him 5 years of experience. So he's worked for us these few years, and as the economy has improved, another company is trying to recruit him away from us. So we're desperately trying to hold on to him. He has a wealth of information and knowledge, and the quality of roads that we're building for the county has increased dramatically. So in essence, we are essentially saving the county money by building better roads that the highway department won't have to repair in a recent time frame. So what we're asking is just to increase, to reclassify him to a supervisory position, give him a little bit of increase in pay. It's not as much as the other companies wants to pay him, but he's happy here. He wants to stay, and he would be happy with this increase. So I feel he's worth his weight for the quality of roads we're building. This is, the level of construction in this county is reminiscent to what we saw before. I think we've exceeded that. Before we only had one inspector, 2 at one time, but now we have 3, and I think I want to keep him because he brings a world of information and to us that we could not replicate without.
So we're basically investing in his expertise.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you're in support of this?
Absolutely. He's a very, very important tool and
Yes, sir.
member of our team.
Right.
Did HR look at it?
Yes,
To reclassify?
Oh, yes. been
And
through.
It's
he's
really
basically in a
changing the
supervisory role at this point because it went from being 1 to 3 people.
Yes,
He is a
right. He
lead
is a
inspector.
senior inspector, yes.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Is that, excuse me,
Commissioner
go ahead.
Allen?
Is that just for this individual or is this for the whole thing?
That's just for one
Just
individual.
one individual, yes, sir.
Well, what I'm saying is, it's not for this whole package on this sheet. This is just on this individual.
Well, no, well, we've discussed everything else.
Everything else has
so-
been discussed.
Well, I've
and
got something else to
approved.
discuss, is what I'm asking.
The
well,
8,634 is just what we're
I
discussing.
guess
that's
I
all.
was getting ahead of myself, asking for a motion because that's part of this total package, so.
That's his benefits?
That's
And
benefits.
Salary and
That's that
benefits, yes,
benefit.
sir.
Well then, was that motion for the total package?
He made the motion, but I seconded the whole
Okay,
package.
okay. All right, well, we've got a motion on total package, but Commissioner P, we'll just stay open for discussion.
I just had a question on the property assessor. I remember when we were looking at his, he was asking for some, or to be able to go dumpster diving in the, over here for filing cabinets. Did we get that issue flushed out?
But he didn't find any filing cabinets that suited, but we have not increased his budget for him to purchase furniture, fixtures, or equipment.
But I remember we said we would look at that at a later date, so.
After he had looked at it.
Didn't- Wasn't it just a couple of years ago, he went through a renovation up there, changing things around?
Yeah, changed the front entrance around the counter,
You
it's
got
just quite a bit of that.
Well, I just wondered where we're at. That's what my question was out of this, since he was on these two down here.
What was the cost that he was projecting for those filing cabinets? Just roughly, it doesn't.
What, $20,000 or so?
20,000.
The mayor didn't say to put that in his budget.
Oh. He's had $10,500 this year in that line item, he hasn't even spent that.
And it's still available to him.
It could be available.
All right, we've got a motion and a second on this package. There's no further discussion.
Now, when you say the total package, are you saying
I'm
the
thinking-
103 million?
360, that's
Okay.
what you needed
Yes.
a motion on, because, yeah, we had discussed everything
Oh.
else. Mr. Tucker, you ready?
I'm ready.
Call the roll.
If you're ready, I'm ready. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. What's next?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is that it?
Thank you, Mike.
That was my,
Mike, I tried to get you in when you were up here the first time.
I would, like I said, I'd stay for several budget
Well, you
meetings to keep it.
you waited through the last one to the end, and we didn't do anything with you after sitting there, so.
Thank you.
You got anything else? We got other budgets.
no, that was,
That's it.
I do have one more,
All right.
and that is solid waste. And it really is just decreasing their, little more, 70,000. What I'm trying to show here is these two grants, the used oil grant and the measurement grant that we got this year, that's in the current year's budget that is not going to be spent, and roll it into next year. If we do it, then we don't have to come in and amend in August. So that's all. That is just
You need a motion
counted
on that?
back. Mhm.
Now, I hadn't looked at this sheet. You got used.
Oh,
I think you had them
I got
flipped
it
there.
flipped on the bottom. I
Flipped
sure
on
do.
the bottom, okay.
Yeah.
Just the labeling, I think, you flipped.
Yeah, it's, the used oil is the 141, the measurement grant is the 7. The measurement grant has got the measurement grant's got a match. That's why it's 14. 14 on the
On the
appropriation,
expenditure, okay.
and 7 on the revenue.
Okay.
Sorry about that. That's what you get for cutting and pasting.
So we need a motion on the solid waste sanitation fund?
Yes,
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
revenue and
Commissioner P.
appropriation.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
You're sweet.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Any
Okay.
other business?
That's it. We're ready for public hearing. Publication is going out
It's
to,
at 5:30?
it's at Down at 5:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did put that on there. See, that's a copy and paste error on my part.
Now, our publication it's already gone to print, has it not?
It's at 7 o'clock.
And the
It's at
revenue
7.
adjustments we made tonight will not be shown.
They are
that.
on there.
They are on there.
I put those in there.
What if we end up?
That's
putting
okay.
it?
It always is.
Well, it was.
It's not to be taken for granted sometimes.
No, it's estimated. It's estimated. Even if y'all didn't approve it, I still would have estimated that increase.
Yeah, you gotta see that. All right, well, our next meeting will be
I would-
Tuesday, June 12th for the public hearing.
At
and
7
that's
o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7.
Sure, everybody can.
Mr. Tucker
Now
tried
the-
to get us out earlier or not.
The public, the notice does not include the things that you added tonight. I did the revenue, but I didn't do the appropriations.
The SROs.
Those are not, those
Yeah,
pieces
those
are
few
not in
things are
there.
not in there. Okay. So we've got our next meeting, it'll be the public hearing in the courtroom, 7 o'clock, June 12th. And then the next night, we'll be here to discuss the public hearing, June 13th. I always wonder, the last couple of years, nobody has shown up. Now I wonder if it's even possible to say we won't have that meeting if nobody speaks. Or is that even appropriate?
We talked about it, so that you can
Did you meet
that
directly
night.
after the public
Yeah,
hearing?
can we,
That-
while we're in session of the public hearing,
Yeah.
can we take action? That, are we,
It's a-
it's a legal meeting, so we could go in, if we could make that decision that night. If nobody speaks or nobody brings up anything that needs attention, we can make that decision that night, whether we come back the next night and meet or not. If that suits the committee.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And it costs taxpayer dollars, everything from the guys doing the TV being here and us being paid what we're paid and everything. And if we don't have to have an extra meeting, I just soon leave that money in the coffers to pay a teacher with or something like that. But, and then after that, our June 21st,
Which is really going to be like our July meeting and take care of it.
will be
Any other business?
our last meeting before we set the tax rate. Of course, we meet, the full commission meets a week from tonight.
Well, and there will be a health and education meeting on the 19th, where I know the school board, I think they're going to come forward and talk to us about some money for land. So there will be something of significance to discuss that night.
And that's at 6 o'clock that night.
Yes, because this room was not available, and also we were trying to make it after Mr. Odom's retirement party.
Okay.
So,
That's the 19th.
19th.
All right, if there's nothing else to come forth, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.